Welcome back, folks, to Jack's Corner, where truth and reality have a seat at the table. Today I'm going to do some more of my drive-bys whereby I shoot down the idiocy of some current headlines in short order. The purpose of the cumulative effect of doing these little drive-bys and covering a lot of different topics will basically implant in everyone's mind just exactly how to analyze and characterize that which is evil and the party that is evil in this country. Now, as I'm doing these, I'm gradually discrediting the media and the actors with just a little bit of logic so that you can learn to do the same thing. In fact, you will get to the point that a tedious application of logical analysis is unnecessary, and trust that the shortcut is to just never trust the godless American-hating communists called Democrats. That's not even a partisan remark anymore, because we have seen the transformation of the word Democrat into meaning communists and communism, as we have seen in nearly a dozen major cities in this country. Well, let's start with the former Democrat nominee for the U.S. Senate from Maine, Graham Platner, who, as you should know by now, checked all the boxes for nearly every perversity known to man, including the latest incredible allegations of rape and sexual abuse. Now, this was the last nail in the coffin for him, and he has now stepped aside after being elected as the Democrat nominee for the U.S. Senate. Here's the real kicker. Most Democrats in leadership knew what he was, and they still were ready and willing and able to push him upon the people of Maine and upon America. But Platner is the least of our problems, because there's plenty of Platners in Congress already, folks. This year we have already gotten rid of Eric Swalwell of California, who you also have the likes of Chris Murphy of Connecticut. You have got the likes of Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, and every Northeastern liberal who rallied around Platner, with Warren saying that in her endorsement of him that he was one of the best people she's ever met. Well, once his poll numbers fell, the mercenary Democrats pulled out the knives and denounced him. They were okay with all of his perversity as long as he could win. After all, he was one of them. Folks, the communist Democrats have nothing to offer you. They obsess over power and control. That is control over you. Now, frankly, folks, with the idiots in Maine that elected this guy, perhaps these types of people need to be controlled. Or better yet, just take away their right to vote. After all, those that they are voting for are going to do that anyway. Once again, the Democrats care nothing about this country, only the power that they have. Just think about it. Multiple scandals erupted about this guy, Platner, within weeks of his announcement. And in fact, some of them were already known and exposed before his election. But Platner is not the real problem. He is only the flower on top of the weed. It's the 65% atheists in Maine who had a fetish for Platner, regardless of his background. The root of the problem is the people. That is why I think it is highly unlikely that we're going to be able to maintain a union of our states in this country, as the people no longer seem to share an identity, and particularly a moral code. There are approximately 15 blue states in this country that are a majority atheist, and every one of them have either communist or communist sympathizers that they send to Congress that influence and affect your lives. These people are some of the most vile creatures on earth, and you don't have to take my word for it, because just look on the internet. It makes it so easy for you to go online and to look into their personal history and their voting records and the scandals in their background. So it is good that Platner is gone, but he will only be replaced with another one like him, because that is who the people in Maine are. Now, ask yourself this question. Why are all the communists, socialists, registered Democrats? Better yet, why are all the violent protesters, crimes, and judges who protect criminals and let them off registered Democrats? Since the age of 16, I have been warning of this and saw the Democrats for the threat that they were to me and the country, and that was over 50 years ago, folks. I gave a speech on this at the age of 16 before 2,000 people in a mock debate as a teenager. So here's another question. How is it that a kid of 16 in the 60s can see the evil and danger that the adults can't? Now back to Platner and the Platner matters. Now some will say, well, there are some good people in Maine who are conservative, but they are a minority. I can just hear the arguments. Oh, it's such a beautiful state. Well, I'm sure that Lot and his family had the same excuses about remaining in Sodom and Gomorrah before God wiped out those cities from the face of the earth. Well, what are some of the other hotspots that we need to focus on for today? Well, here's one. There's good news and bad news. People are waking up, but I think it's too late. I'm hearing from people of substantial means and influence for the first time saying to me that they are really scared and concerned that communism has come to our shores and it's in our government. Really? I've been saying this since 16. And my response is, well, where have you been? It was in our schools way before it got to our government, folks. They abused your children and you paid for them to do it. Now your kids think that communism, the most murderous form of government in human history, have seized your children. Civil War 2.0 is upon us, and I told you so. If you think Biden's turning the FBI and the DOJ into a weapon against Americans was bad, if the Communist Democrats get into power again, they will use all the technology available to stay in power permanently. They are already plotting to pack the courts, eliminate the Senate, and the presidency. Lord only knows what they'll do to you and your children. Folks, this is no longer speculation. Books have been written about it. Years ago, defectors from Russia told you about it and told you what the 10-point plan was by the communists and that they had devised to take over America. And they were implementing it then, and they're doing it now, but in a more open way. For the first time now, we have allowed communists winning elections and will be in Congress. The shame on so many should be so great that the pharmacies should be running out of anti-anxiety drugs. Frankly, but for the children, my family, and my own freedoms, such widespread stupidity in this country deserves the harshest of punishments. I've done my part. Now, let's move on. Let's move on to another reason these podcasts like mine are important. And mine isn't the only one. There's a lot of people out there that are screaming and yelling to you the warnings that you should be listening to. These podcasts educate and expose those who are the villains that have a platform and misuse it. Folks, the more we do this, the less value many influencers, such as actors and other celebrities, have from an advertising dollar standpoint. This deprives all these lowlifes of the money that they need to influence low information voters. So let's start with some examples here. Friday on MS Now's Deadline, network host Al Sharpton said the Trump administration doesn't even try to hide the fact they are bigoted. Really? Well, who would ever listen to Sharpton? If you know what you should know about this guy, Sharpton has been a fraud and a race hustler for years. In fact, in 1990, he was indicted on a 67-count state indictment for grand larceny, fraud, and falsifying business records. Prosecutors alleged that he stole approximately $250,000 from his nonprofit organization. Then there was his famous fraud involving an alleged rape of a black woman, Tawana Brawley, which later investigation was determined to be fabricated. Sharpton pushed his fraud and continued to do so despite the grand jury refusing to indict. So what are you hiding, Al? How about the fact that your whole life has been built upon being a race hustler and started with the fraud of Tawana Brawley, where you knew there was no rape or racism? Now here's another example. The Interview co-host Lula Navarro said that the Democrat Party at large has stepped away from the rallying around the flag, and they have allowed Republicans to own patriotism. And there is a degree to which if you see an American flag now, you are going to assume that the person is a Republican. Well, folks, frankly, you should believe that because there are no patriotic Democrats if you are referring to American exceptionalism and our constitutional freedoms. The only thing Navarro is patriotic to is Marxism, Remove her from the platform. She doesn't deserve citizenship. Now, here's another one for you. Several dozen protesters from the Party of Socialism and Liberation and a fringe communist Right to Rebel group gathered in Alamo City to show their support for Cuba on the eve of America's 250th anniversary. And the protesters were chanting pro-communist slogans and offered Marxist literature to passing tourists just feet from the famous San Antonio Riverwalk. My question is, why are they here? Send them back to Cuba. But first, I want to know who is funding them. Deport or denaturalize them. Now, here's a story that will anger you more if you're not already. This is where I would sentence the white guys to jail with a Muslim as their guard. Now, hang with me here. An Afghan migrant has been found guilty of grooming and raping 2 teenage girls in the English town of Bolton in Greater Manchester, England, but let off. And the white police officers, guess what? They're going to punish the white victims for complaining about it. What is wrong with these people? What's wrong with England? What's wrong with white people? I mean, it's unbelievable. Is there a white virus, mind virus going around? Islam, folks, is a sexually perverse ideology, and I hope you got the subtle point that I didn't say religion. It's not. Islam was born in sexual perversions, and it is an ideology, not a religion. So why is this rape in England so surprising? Because the depraved and mentally retarded whites, the indigenous English there, allowed it. There is now an estimated 1 million plus white girls that have been sexually abused, and it's been allowed, all in the name of multiculturalism. White girls are referred to by the Muslims as meat. The real criminals are the whites that tolerate it. They deserve the death penalty, and folks, it's coming to America next. In fact, most of the crimes by illegals here in the States are sexual in nature. You cannot coexist with these animals. You have to wake up. You either kill the weed at the root or it's going to come back. The root here is the white liberals. There is nothing worse than the enablers. I detest these cowards. Get rid of them, and you get rid of the problem. Now, let's talk about a sore spot 90 miles off of our shore that we have tolerated for over 60 years. The United States Embassy in Havana on Thursday said that communist Castro regime had threatened local activists and dissidents and prevented them from participating in the embassy's celebration for the 250th anniversary of on the 4th of July. Folks, I want to see these communist Cubans at the end of a rope. There is no room in this world for a communist, a socialist, progressive, or a liberal as far as I'm concerned. Think about it. Cuban people have been in misery for most of my life, and so have many of you. I remember having a bomb shelter in my house as a kid and having air raid drills in school in case of a nuclear attack when I was growing up in grade school and in high school. And it was all because of the communists. The only good communist is a dead one, folks. And I hope before the end of Trump's term that he invades Cuba and sets the people free, followed by the execution of all the communists. I have many Cuban friends and clients. They are great people who have suffered because of America's policy of appeasement. And plans are that I will soon be talking with Elena Rodriguez, the daughter of Fidel Castro. I hope to have her on my podcast soon, so stay tuned for that. Now, okay, here's one of our good guys who has gotten it wrong. And maybe saying he's gotten it wrong is maybe a bit too strong, but Vice President J.D. Vance called on Americans to reject the view of the United States seeing only the sins of the nation instead of its grace and its greatness. Okay, now this bothers me, and this is why. It's a common slip that too many of us make called moral equivalency, trying to appear fair and even-handed. Well, stop with the qualifiers because communists will create another book from it and about how bad America is. Folks, stop giving evil a pass. Stop giving them a talking point. They deserve nothing but prison. I make no apologies for this nation until the whites in this nation can show us the courage of our president and what he has shown. Don't wear me out with moral equivalency statements with people who do and will dine with the devil. Every time someone on the conservative side attempts to speak of the virtues of America, they reflexively add qualifiers. so they can appear to be fair. Are you really kidding me? When was anyone on the right given credit for being fair? As the old saying goes, all's fair in love and war. That's because the loser gets nothing. As my father was once fond saying, faint heart never won fair lady. In some things you must just be ruthless, and your enemy has already proven it. The definition of peace is when your enemy is dead, so get acquainted with the enemy's plans and you'll not have any problem with what I just said. Time to toughen up, folks. So many conservatives live in denial. So, to all those who want to be seen as nice, fire your PR department, because in the midst of war, that will get you killed, and we are in a war. Remember, ask for no quarter and give none. Well, now we have Senator Chris Murphy, who you've heard me talk about before, is back in the news. He's one of the most leftist, American-hating Democrat senators who practices his craft of lying daily. Yep, he is another one of those Northeastern simps. Murphy just said what Republican Senator Thune can't seem to get through his TDS head. That's the Trump derangement syndrome. Murphy recently said that in November, when they win, that is the Democrats win, and this is a quote, "Of course we're going to have to compromise, but we're not going to get any of this stuff done as long as the filibuster stops us from doing it." Wow, he just said what we should all know and what the Republicans should know. Get rid of the filibuster, folks, because the Democrats are going to do it. Did you hear that, Senator Thune? You jackass. They are going to get rid of the filibuster anyway, so go ahead and pass the voter ID bill. He's another Republican that wants to play by the so-called rules that the Democrats will never honor because they have no honor. Dear Republican senators, get rid of this deadweight Thune. We have to have the SAVE Act. Now let's talk about the Democrat gubernatorial candidate and state representative Francisca Hong of Wisconsin said she supports using public funding to expand gender-affirming care, including for transgender youth. During a January appearance on the Take Two podcast, Hong called for expanding access to gender-affirming care, saying that Wisconsin should invest in clinics that provide the treatment, including for transgender youth. Where's the COVID virus, folks, when you need it? This reprobate is yet another Democrat candidate who would harm children. As God said, it would be better that she had not been born than to do what she's proposing and then to face the consequences. The same applies to those of us who tolerate her. And that's what we have a problem with. We've got a toxic toleration in this country of tolerating these evil people. Now let's talk about ugly Hollywood and how ugly Hollywood has reared its ugly head again. A host of members from the pampered and coddled Hollywood elites, including Sarah Jessica Parker, Mark Ruffalo, Molly Ringwald, Cheryl Lee Ralph, and Bradley Whitford, released a joint July 4th video with author Tim Snyder in an effort to challenge President Donald Trump on the day the nation paused to celebrate its 250th birthday. Well, let me pick one out of this group, and that's Ms. Parker. And as far as she's concerned, calling her a whore is not only accurate, but one only needs see one of her sleazy movies and TV series. These ingrates need to be drummed out of the industry and the studios that hire them. And those studios need to know that you and others will boycott those so-called actors. It's been done before, and we need to be more demanding. These reprobates are not expressing opinions. They are lying, and the lies have no rights. They know nothing about what they're talking about or saying. They got lucky only because of the country in which they live, and now want to tear it down. Folks, I practice what I preach and boycott so many movies that have as cast members these types. Robert De Niro is one of the many on my list, and unfortunately, my list is a long one. So the message here is to stop funding the destruction of your country by giving these people a platform, and for sure, do not fund them. Now, here's a really disgusting one for you, and why this man is even mayor, why his wife is even in this country. It's too many of our fault for that. The wife of New York's communist mayor celebrated America's 250th anniversary by hopping a jet to a Spanish resort island for an Islamic spiritual wellness retreat, leaving behind her communist husband, who earlier in the week celebrated the 4th with a caustic speech by essentially saying the country is the home of the white racist and freedom belongs only to the chosen few. You should be outraged. We must denaturalize these enemies and deport them. Uganda did. Well, let's flash back a little bit real quickly here to Graham Platner of Maine for a moment. I want you to mentally make a list of all the Democrats who pushed the Nazi-tattooed Platner to win their party's nomination in Maine. Platner is the kind of people the Democrats are and who they support. No more hiding behind ambiguous platitudes, folks. No more excuses. So here is a partial list of the Democrat reprobates who supported Platner's candidacy. Chuck Schumer of New York, Kristen Gillibrand of New York, Ro Khanna of California, Ruben Gallego of New Mexico, Bernie Sanders, of course, of Vermont. Almost all the Democrats except for Fetterman of Pennsylvania supported Platner knowing he was a pervert, folks. This should tell you everything you need to know about the Democrat Communist Party. Knowing that should guide you as to how you should deal in your relationships with everybody else that supports the Democrats. And I don't care if it's family, friends, relationships, associations, neighbors. This is what you've got to do. You have to not be equally yoked with these people who support a party that is going to destroy your country and your freedoms. Well, let's not forget also about Eric Swalwell, who a few months ago had to resign Congress and drop out of the California governor's race for the same thing as Platner. He was a dirtbag just like Platner, and the Dems rushed to support him. Folks, they are all the same. So what have I done with all these quick drive-by remarks of headlines? And what have I done for you on this? I've given you basically no excuse for voting Democrats or associating with one. They are all supporting what is blatantly evil. Tolerate them, and you are no better. In fact, you just may be the root of the problem. Okay, folks, well, that'll do for this episode. So until next time, I'm Jack Richardson for Jack's Corner.